the X-Men that are coming to the MCU. I, as a major X-Men fan, I have preconceived notions of how I think they should introduce the mutants into the MCU and what storylines they should do first, what team they should start with first. I
That was one
definitely
of the
have,
major theories for the show that was debunked.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was a theory that WandaVision would be the start of mutants as kind of a
From what we
reverse House
know.
of M, from what we know. But does not turn out that that was the case. WandaVision thus far, other than cracking the door open just a little bit for Wanda herself being a mutant, outside of that has nothing to do with the mutants. But nonetheless, now that the show has been concluded, we have been getting some information out. So we pretty much have all been confirmed that, Feige has revealed that the discussions about the X-Men are happening. Beyond that, we did get a leaked logo of the title that they're going to introduce the mutants in, and it's simply called The Mutants. And for those watching on YouTube, I'll probably have the logo up somewhere on the screen as you're watching this. Only because I want to call out to the fact that when you look at this logo, it's actually the New Mutants logo minus the word new. So I don't know what that means.
Which is a throw. I mean, if you look at it though, like any X-Men fan from like the old cartoon and shit will recognize like that is the X-Men logo, just mutants. But I do like what I read about where that phrase came from. Well, I think you have that right.
Yeah, that is a homage, if you will, to Stan Lee. And the significance about the mutants, and it's funny that this is all going down like this again, because where the X-Men, or better yet, where the mutants came from, is the fact that Stan Lee, when he invented them, I can't have everybody be bitten by a radioactive spider. I can't have everybody be hit by an atomic bomb.
Diversity.
Yeah. It's like it's becoming a struggle figuring out all these different origins. So fuck it. We're just going to make the mutants, where they just spontaneously are born.
Fuck it.
with powers and shit. So that is a good homage. I just, the logo though, it straight looks like the New Mutants logo, just minus the new.
Well, didn't they? I read too that originally when Stan Lee and the co-creator wanted to do it, it was going to be called the Mutants, but then they were like, that's too plain. So that's when they dubbed X-Men as the actual title instead of the Mutants.
Right. Yep.
And so I think that's awesome, because that's like WandaVision did a lot of that stuff. Like if you guys go back to the license plate from the Office episode, that was Stan Lee's birthday up top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show homage to the people, the person that got you out there. And I think it's perfect. Like from what I read in that article is Feige confirmed the talks have been long. They've been going over it. So it's not something like that's just starting. He's been doing his fucking mad genius shit, trying to piece.
Well, you've got to. You've got to, because even as an X-Men fan, even with my expectations that it's going to be just a little bit different, or it's going to be different than what I remember. But this is still really, really important. Okay,
can't be worth the box.
I'll show you here. I'm going to show you something. 1 second.
I got something. Hold up.
There we go. Do you see? Okay. Do you see this? This is X-Men #1. Not the original X. This is the same issue. It's just got 4 different covers that come together to make a cool.
Was that the 90s with Jim Lee?
Yeah. This is Jim Lee. Yep. Also, funny, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. In Marvel vs. Capcom 2, 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 in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So outside of Jean, Professor X Beast, and Archangel, everybody on these covers is in Marvel's Capcom 2. Anyway, my whole point for showing you this,
He loves his X-Men, if you can't tell.
other than I want to gloat. But anyway, the reason I did that is because that comic right there is the top-selling comic ever. That's why they ain't worth shit, because there's so many out there. But anyway, that comic has sold more copies than any other comic that has ever existed. I say all that to say this. The X-Men are important.
Mm-hmm.
The X-Men are the only reason that Marvel even survived. So it's big. It's big, it's important, and if they screw it up, they'll screw up the MCU.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we've already talked about comic fatigue. Them being able to introduce the X-Men right now is the only reason that the excitement for the MCU continues to climb. I mean, it's good stuff. And if the X-Men weren't coming, we'd still watch it. But because they have the X-Men now, we can have another Avengers movie. And I don't know if I can properly articulate what I mean by saying that, but I don't know. I loved Iron Man. I even loved Iron Man 2. But really, the first nerdgasm I probably ever had was that scene in the first Avengers film where they pan all around the Avengers.
Or
you remember when they're in the street?
Which was
and I'm
Cleveland,
like,
by the way.
Yes. I mean, I was like, holy fuck, we're here. We are fucking here. Yeah. I'm like, we are fucking here. This is great. Yeah, the X-Men can give us another moment like that again.
And then they kind of also did that in Age of Ultron too.
Yeah.
When they were inside like that temple and the fucking like that was pretty cool. Because wasn't that where we first also got where Iron Man was shooting off a Cap's shield?
Yeah, they were showing them work together. Iron Man shoots Cap's shield. He reflects it to kill a bunch of Chitauri. The Hulk rips off.
Look at the synergy.
Yeah. The Hulk rips off part of that big space worm's armor, stabs it into him. Thor takes his hammer, smashes it down even more, takes him down. Like, yeah, that was the shit.
I mean, in any game we play that has, Marvel in it, we always have the character synergies between each other.
Mm-hmm.
You push these buttons, this one goes off this, and they do, attack together. So, seeing that in the movies was like, oh, I remember doing that in a game.
See, Marvel Ultimate Alliance is cool, isn't it? It's my favorite part of it.
One thing I will say, though, just one last thing about the X-Men, and I think this is a very big thing. Not only to your point where if he screws it up, which I don't think Feige would ever fucking screw it up, it could ruin the MCU or at least severely damage it. I think, too, doing it right will have even more of an impact with all the shit that we are dealing with in today's society, which kind of leads back to one of the reasons also, Stan Lee created mutants and superheroes was to show that everybody's not the same. And with the diversity issues, the ethnicity issues, the racism that's going on right now, like they really could implant very positive vibes doing this right and taking that heart that Stan Lee put in the whole reason behind the mutants and putting it in a $1 billion franchise on the screen.
Yeah.
You can't fuck that up. If you fuck that up, like you're really throwing money out the window. Disney, we know you like your fucking money. 2, you're throwing one of huge, massive opportunities to show that we're just not superhero shit. We actually have a purpose and we can do something positive outside of just entertainment, which kind of goes back to, Jay, Black Christmas, Black Panther. Like it's a superhero movie, but the underlining meanings behind that character in that movie, like the MCU can do a lot more, and I can't wait to see what we get.
Yeah. And you mentioning that also makes me think of, how passionate X-Men fans are about the X-Men, but what they mean to us. Now, I'm heteronormative, okay? So but I was overweight growing up and a nerd, that ostracized category of people. And so the X-Men speak to me because of that, and they always have. Really, any person that has been marginalized is probably very attracted to the X-Men because that's the story of the X-Men, the story of mutants being persecuted and even certain instances killed just because of their genetics. That's always spoke to marginalized people. Again, those like myself, as well as the LGBT community, it's always been a metaphor that, and I get it, there is a strong metaphor there with civil rights and human rights and everything like that. But I will say that representation does come with a little bit of a caveat, because if you do something a certain way with a character, then sometimes that community can just kind of like go off. I remember that before they did the House of X, Powers of X, in one of the issues of Uncanny X-Men, Rain Sinclair, Wolfsbane, she was killed. And she was killed because she was in her human form, and these three guys were like hitting on her, and, she's not accepting their advances. And as they start to like mess with her, like almost rape at this point. And in that moment of trauma, she turned into Wolfsbane, and then they discovered that she was a mutant, and they killed her. Like, they're embarrassed that they came on to a mutant and they killed her. And so a lot of people in the LGBTQ community took that as like a metaphor for a trans person being killed because, the person that came on to them found out they're trans. And they were saying, oh, well, that's really not a good representation. You need to do better. And we just don't need that. I felt the message was there. I didn't feel that the X-Men, the writers, were actually trying to say, hey, this is us, supporting transgender. They were really just trying to tell a really sad story. So we just got to be careful there.
Make you think and like contemplate, see what's actually happening without, like, let's be honest, getting your hands a little too dirty. Because, you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to get judged every way. You're going to be judged if you come out with full support plan, black and white written there. You're going to be judged if you dodged,
Well, outside of that, let me just go around the horn real quick. Volsker, on a scale to 1 to 10, I don't know why I'm doing 1 to 10 scales today, but I guess that's the theme for the day. What's your excitement with the X-Men, looking like they're finally maybe coming to the MCU, and not because of WandaVision?
So, to say that there was a little disappointment with not coming out of WandaVision, but I did love it. I'm still excited to see what Feige's going to do next. And just going back to like what I mentioned, I'm surprised at how awesome the show was. So the future of the MCU looks awesome. So with him doing his mad scientist type shit, like, I would say probably a 9.5.
Okay, 9.5. Jelly, what about you? What's your excitement for the X-Men looking like they're coming?
Oh, 8.5. Only because we already got all these other X-Men movies, and it's just kind of like, I'm kind of getting tired of them. Kind of like, how DC wants to do the same thing over and over and over.
No, they don't do that.
DC reboot-averse, yeah.
I don't want to see the same thing rebooted over and over again. Like, oh, we gonna get another Cyclops, we gonna get another Jean.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah, but they can do it right this time. I guess that's why I'm at a 10, because obviously the X-Men are my favorite. And so to see them come into the MCU, which is the more quality version, I think we'll get more comic accurate versions. Yeah, do we want to see another Cyclops? I do. I want to see the right Cyclops, because In the last X-Men movie, they went with the whole like Wolverine or bust mentality. So like they spent a lot of time trying to get you to sympathize with Wolverine over Scott Summers, and how they did that was make Scott Summers like a complete dick. And completely unrelatable. So I want to see
I mean, that's how he
X-Men
kind
done
of was
right.
in everything animated, though. Like, he was an ass
Right.
in the
Yes.
animated ones.
They make him follow suit in all the animated shit as well because
He's
they
always
want
like,
to.
I'm Mr. Perfect, we're gonna stick to the
Yeah.
rules, and you're Wolverine, you're an asshole. Stay away from Jean. And that's just
Yeah.
how I seen, like, everything that he's ever been in.
Because that's how he is portrayed. Like no matter what it is, these days, it's all about making Cyclops look like making Cyclops look like a dick, and making Wolverine look cool as hell, and doing everything they can to make you want Wolverine and Jean Grey together instead of Jean Grey and Scott Summers. So they always just change in a
Except
way.
that one comic where Cyclops and Wolverine got together.
Well, that's the shit. That's the shit that goes on now during Hickman's X run. Is yeah, now it's kind of weird, where Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean Grey all do this menage a trois bullshit. That yeah, I'm not quite with. I'm not quite with at all.
They're sharing. They're doing the
Yeah,
community thing.
that's a bit much for me. That's a bit much for me.
You're like, my old self can't do that.
Omega Level Nerd D Square here. I hope you enjoyed this little excerpt from our show, the Omega Level Nerds podcast. I really do appreciate you checking us out. If you like what you watched today, then please check us out. There is the link to the whole entire show, over an hour's worth of some nerdy goodness for you. So definitely hope you check it out. Well, thank you very much. As always, peace and love. We'll talk to you again soon.